The email lands between a grocery coupon and a church newsletter. You have one close match. Janelle taps it in the Safeway checkout line, and a face loads on her phone. A girl with her daughter's cheekbones and her husband's eyes. Under the picture is a single line that turns her mouth to dust. Relationship, half-sibling. The girl's last name is nothing Janelle recognizes. The girl's mother's last known city, Richmond, Virginia. And under family tree, one branch just says, Mother, deceased, 1997. Janelle hears the cashier's small talk flatten into static. Her fingers tremble against the phone. The receipt prints. The world doesn't know it, but her marriage has just split down the middle like a rotting beam. When a routine school genealogy project leads Janelle and her 12-year-old daughter, Zora, to use a mail-in DNA kit, the results connect Zora to a half-sibling she's never met. The match points to a missing woman from 1997 believed dead, whose trail ends near the same Richmond neighborhood where Janelle's husband, Marcus, grew up. In their comfortable Prince George's County life, Marcus insists his one mistake from the 90s was petty and sealed. But as Janelle investigates, she uncovers a secret first family and a crime that was never truly solved. Torn between protecting Zora and pursuing the truth, she must decide whether to expose the man she loves or the lie her entire household rests on. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. The first time Janelle tries to speak, the words break apart. She's still in the kitchen, her Safeway bag sweating on the counter, the email open on her phone like a wound. An orange glows beneath the clear plastic dew-like moisture on its skin. She thinks, absurdly, about how fresh it looked in the produce aisle, how the clerk smiled and said, "We got the good citrus today," like a benediction. "Babe?" Marcus calls from the living room. The wizard's game murmurs. Zora's giggle sifts in from upstairs, where she's on FaceTime with her best friend, whispering about a math teacher who says "especially" and refuses to admit it's wrong. "Coming," Janelle answers, though she stays where she is, staring at the screen. You have one close match. Half-sibling. Shared DNA, 25%. Name, Nia Hart. User chosen. Lives, unknown. Last logged in. Today. There's a tiny dot beside a messaging icon. Send Nia a note. The platform's tone feels cruelly cheerful, like the bright beret on the head of a girl who doesn't know she's about to fall. The kitchen smells faintly of lemon cleaner and last night's jerk chicken. Janelle reaches for the tap and lets the water run until its cold sips and feels her pulse slow, but only a little. She taps the tree view, and that's where she sees it. Mother, deceased, 1997, no father listed. An old scanned newspaper clipping icon hovers, and when she taps again, a paywalled page threatens to swallow her whole. Janelle? He calls again, closer. The game volume clicks down. She locks the phone and slides it face down on the counter, just as Marcus rounds the corner, one eyebrow up. He's got that weekend softness to him, sweatpants and a t-shirt from a charity 5K they ran before the pandemic. A faint 5 o'clock shadow shading his jaw. He leans to kiss her. She takes it, because the muscle memory is still stronger than the dread. You good? He asks, then lifts a bag and starts unloading. You got the good bread. Yeah, she says. Zora's project. It, updated. He pauses. The DNA thing? She doesn't look at him. It says she has a close match. A half-sibling. For one beat, he doesn't react. Then he sets the bread down with care, like he's handling something that might explode. That happens sometimes, he says too fast. You know how those sites are. People get matched wrong all the time. I read about that. He did read about that 3 weeks ago. After Janelle asked if he'd mind Zora doing the kit, He spent 20 minutes skimming his phone and then shrugged, saying, "It's just for fun, right? Find out if she's got Iberian or Viking or whatever." He'd laughed. "I could have told her she got barbecue in her blood." "Her name is Nia," Janelle says. She waits her lips. "Her mother is listed as deceased in 1997. He doesn't breathe. Or rather, he does, but it's thinner now." He keeps his hands on the bread. When he finally glances up, his eyes are too flat. "Lots of folks died in 97, he says. "Baby, you know better than to jump to—" "From Richmond," Janelle says, and that halts him. Stops him in place like he's hearing the word through a cracked speaker. A memory floats up, uninvited. The first time she met his mother on a sweltering August afternoon, when the cicadas screamed like power tools, and every porch had a box fan whirring. His mother made sweet tea, so strong it could hold a spoon upright. She'd said, "Richmond raised him, but D.C. made him," with a flinty pride that carried everything the phrase wouldn't say Richmond was where they survived. D.C. was where they learned to perform survival, so it looked like success. Marcus clears his throat. I was in Richmond then," he says finally. "That's true." The fridge hums. He folds the bread bag with neat, taut fingers. She sees the tendons move under the skin like cables. "Marcus," Janelle says, "do you know about this?" His gaze shifts. "No. Do you know this woman?" "Who?" She holds his eyes. "Nia's mother." He does what he always does when he's deciding whether to lie. He glances to the left just for a heartbeat. It's small, his tell, but after 13 years, it might as well be a billboard. He sees her see it. Something tired passes over his face.
Because it was the only proof I wasn't lying.
"I don't," he says, and his voice is careful now. "I don't know any Nia. I don't know her mother." He takes a breath. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Upstairs, Zora laughs in a way that sounds exactly like Janelle did when she was 12. Bright, unheavy. The sound drops like a coin into Janelle's chest, this tiny, precious note of a life still uncracked. "I'm going to message her," Janelle says. "Don't," Marcus says instantly. "Not until we know what it is. You don't want to drag Z into something messy. So we just ignore it?" She hears the edge in her voice and tries to sand it down. It could be nothing. Or it could be, if she's real, someone who shares a father with our daughter. He looks at her like she accused him of something unspeakable. In a way, she has. "Janelle." She picks up the phone. The messaging window blinks, blank and clean, waiting. Her thumbs hover. "Just don't do anything right now," he says. "Please." "What do you want me to do instead?" she asks. "Bake a cake?" He flinches, then blows out a breath. "Give me time to look into it." He sees the disbelief rise up her throat. "I mean, I'll ask around. If it's Richmond, maybe it's somebody from school who got mixed up in something and used my name or something." He's rambling. He stops and tries again. "Just give me tonight." "And then what?" He meets her eyes. "Then I'll tell you what I find." She holds him there in silence until she hears a knock on their reality, the front door creaking, and Zora's feet thumping downstairs. "Mom, Dad, can we order dumplings?" Tasha's mom said they got the plump ones at that place near the car wash. Janelle swallows the word half-sibling and puts on a smile. "We'll see, baby. Do your homework first." Zora spins into the kitchen, a whirlwind of edges and elbows, her hair pressed into two puffballs that list slightly to the left like question marks. She snatches a clementine from the bag and fumbles the peel, then pauses mid-strip when she sees their faces. "What?" she says. "Why you look like someone died." Janelle's hand goes to her daughter's back. She can feel, beneath the cotton of Zora's t-shirt, the sturdy map of her shoulder blades, bones she kissed when she was a toddler. Nobody died, Janelle says. We're just hungry. Zora eyes her and narrows her own. That, too, is Janelle's suspicion as a love language. Then Zora tosses the peel into the trash and flips her phone to show a meme, a raccoon washing a slice of bread under a faucet like it's a religious rite. Janelle laughs, trapped and grateful. Marcus smiles back too, awkwardly, and reaches for his daughter's head. He presses a kiss between the puffs, his hand lingering like it's the only honest thing he knows to do. That night, after Zora falls asleep to thunder rolling lazy against the roof and the Wizards losing by 11, they sit at the dining table with the lights turned low. The house has that particular hush that comes when your child is asleep and the rest of the world is running somewhere else. Tell me, Janelle says. He taps his fingers once against the wood, a neutral knock. When I was 17, he says, you know I got into some trouble. I told you that. It got sealed. It wasn't. It wasn't what my mother thought it was, and it wasn't what the police made it either. There were people doing dirt, and I got caught up on the edge of it. She nods stiffly. He'd said this before. Sealed record. A dumb thing. His words, early in their dating days, had been paired with a grimace and a vow that he'd stopped being that boy once he left Richmond for D.C., and then left D.C. for college, and then left that version of himself entirely when he married her. She believed him. She wanted to. I didn't have no first family, he says. I would have told you. Would you? She asks quietly. He winces. Yes. Then why did you look like you swallowed glass when I said Richmond? Because Richmond ain't clean for me, he says, a flash of temper. It fizzles as quickly as it sparks. Because I know what you can find when you start digging. Janelle thinks of the uncles who never came to Thanksgiving and the cousins who arrived with stories nobody asked to verify, because asking hurt more than believing. She thinks of her own father, a postal worker who never raised his voice and carried a universe of silence on his back like a backpack. There are rules in black families about how much you are allowed to know. She had tried to make a different set for her own house. Tomorrow, she says, I'm going to message Nia. He rubs at his jaw. You're not going to wait a night? I'm giving you tonight, she says. Tomorrow, I'm giving her a chance to be real. The message takes an hour to write and 8 seconds to send. Hi, Nia. We used the kit for my daughter's school project, and it shows you as a close match. I don't want to be intrusive, but if you're open to it, we'd like to talk. No pressure at all. Janelle. She expects silence. What she gets instead is a reply in under a minute. Her phone buzzes. Hi. I've been waiting for this. Can we talk? Janelle stares at the screen until the bubbles fade. Yes. When? Now? Nia writes. Phone is better. My voicemail is full, so call twice if I miss it. Janelle's heartbeat climbs the stairs she can't seem to move her body toward. She glances at Marcus, hovering in the doorway like a man watching a gun circle the room. He nods once, slowly, like he's refusing a panic he can't shut down. She dials. Hello? The voice is young, but not a child's. 19, 20. There's a small rasp that suggests cigarettes or a laugh that was overused while it was still new. This is Janelle, she says, from the message. A breath rushes through the speaker. I thought about using a fake name when I signed up, the girl says. I'm glad I didn't. I'm Nia. Hi, Nia. You have a daughter? Nia asks. It says that in your message. Yes, Zora. I think she's my sister, Nia says, and there's no wobble. Half-sister. I mean, Janelle swallows. What makes you think that? A small pause. My mama told me my father was from Richmond, but he left. She never told me his name. She died when I was little. I lived with my aunt, and then... Anyway, I always hoped there was somebody else out there who had his face. Chanel's eyes flicked to Marcus. He has turned toward the window, his profile a cliff. Where are you now? Janelle asks. I'm in Hyattsville, Nia says. Chanel's breath hitches. That's 15 minutes from their house. 10 if she catches green lights. You're here? Janelle says. In Maryland? Been here a year, Nia says. My aunt moved up for a job at the VA. She clears her throat. Look, I know this is weird. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want to know if I have people. I don't have a lot. Chanel's mouth goes dry. She looks at Marcus. And then, because it's absurd not to, she asks, Nia, do you have a picture of your mother? She can hear Nia scrolling. I have one. Someone sent it from a church program. It's old. A text bubble pings, and a photo blooms. A young black woman with braids tucked behind her ears. A shy smile. Eyes that hold the camera with an intelligence that doesn't shout. In the corner of the picture, a palm frond catches sunlight, bleaching its edges white. Marcus's hand grips the back of a chair, so tight his knuckles bleach too. Did she have a name? Janelle asks, though she knows the answer is yes. And the problem is, it isn't Janelle's to say. Nia's breath thins. Saad, she says. It's pronounced Sade, like the singer, but spelled shade on her birth certificate because... She laughs, hard and sharp. Because America. Janelle lets the name sit between them. She hears a wire hum inside Marcus that she can't see. I'm sorry your mother died, Janelle says. My deepest condolences, even if they're late. Thank you, Nia says. She sounds like someone who learned to accept tenderness without trusting it. Do you want to meet? Janelle glances at the clock. It's close to 9. Yes, she says, surprising herself. Tomorrow afternoon? There's a coffee place on East-West Highway. Somewhere public. Okay, Nia says too quickly. Then small. Can I bring something I found about my mother? Of course. After they hang up, Janelle sits with her palms flat on the table, feeling the grain of the wood like braille. She lifts her eyes to Marcus. He's still looking at the window, as if the dark backyard might compose an answer in the gesture of the cherry tree. You know her, Janelle says. It isn't a question. I knew a lot of folks, he says, and his voice is car-busted. Janelle, don't lie to me anymore. Something moves behind his face. He sets both hands on the chair back, as if preparing for a push that will take all his weight. I knew Assad, he says, eyes closed. Back then. Silence fans out between them like smoke, heavy and difficult to breathe through. Was she your girlfriend? Janelle asks. No, he says, his eyes open. She was my friend. Did you sleep with her? Yes, he says, and the word lands on the table like a glass that doesn't break, but still somehow cuts you. And did you know she had a child? No, he says fiercely. I swear to God, I didn't. If I had. He stops, swallows. If I had, I wouldn't have. I would have. He indicates the house with a hopeless tilt of his chin. I would have done something. Janelle stares at him. What happened to her? His gaze slides to the left and jerks back straight. He shakes his head once, a small, tight tick. She vanished, he says, the word a whisper. Some people said she left town. Some said she got hurt. There was a rumor about the river. But no body. No police who cared enough to dig. You know how that goes. Black girls go missing, and it's maybe she ran off. Janelle thinks of the sticker at the back of the folder in her classroom. She teaches 9th grade English, and every year the faces cycle. Missing, missing, missing. Her students have learned to look to not see, because seeing puts a hole in your day you can't patch. You didn't go to the police? She asks. I was a 17-year-old with a court date, he says, shaking his head. The police weren't the place I went. There was a guy back then, older, not a kid. The kind who wore a tie while he did dirt. He said he'd find out. Then my mother moved us to D.C., and I told myself she'd turned up somewhere safe. I told myself if I kept moving forward, the past couldn't grab my ankle. His throat works. You ever tell yourself something so long it grows a skin, and you start calling it a fact? Janelle wants to say yes. She doesn't. Tomorrow, she says, I'm meeting Nia. I'd like you to come. He looks like she's offered him a ladder into a burning window. What if I'm not the father? He says, grasping at a desperate rationality. What if it's somebody else? Then you'll be a man who showed up when a girl asked for help, Janelle says. We can't lose either way. He nods once, quick and pained, like agreeing is an admission of more than a plan. The coffee shop is all glass and reclaimed wood, the kind of place where the barista has a forearm tattoo of a fern, and the espresso machine sounds like a small plane. Janelle orders tea because coffee would make her shake too hard, and Marcus orders nothing. He stands with his hands in his jacket pockets, eyeing a poster for a fundraiser for a local housing justice group. The bullet points read like accusations. Evictions double since 2020. Black families hardest hit. Know your rights. Nia walks in 5 minutes late, winded and earnest, and dressed like someone who's sharing clothes with her aunt jeans a little too big, a sweater whose sleeves have been cuffed twice. She's beautiful in a way that makes Janelle's throat ache. Not because of the resemblance. That's there, sure, in the curve of the mouth and the brow line, but because beauty is what the world notices first and then punishes. Hi, Nia says, catching her breath. You're Janelle. She turns to Marcus. And you're? Marcus, he says, voice low. I'm Marcus. Nia looks at him long enough to be sure about the eyes. Janelle sees the moment she finds them. It hits like a quiet revelation. I brought this, Nia says quickly, before emotion can spoil the plan she's made for herself. She pulls a manila envelope from her tote and slides out photocopies. My aunt kept some stuff. She said my mother was. She was the kind of person who kept things. Receipts, flyers, like she thought details were a way not to be erased. Janelle's fingers go numb as she takes the papers. There's a church program with homegoing in gold script, and Sade's name almost, but not quite, correct. There's a photocopied flyer with a grainy photo. Missing, Saad James. Last seen, APRIL 12, 1997. At the bottom, a phone number with more hope than resources. And there's a newspaper clipping. Richmond Times-Dispatch, date smudged but legible. The headline is bland in the way that racism can be presented like a weather report. Young woman disappears. Police seek information. The photograph beside the brief is clearer than it has any right to be. Saad, again. And next to her, blurred but unmistakable, a boy with his arm slung over her shoulder. His smile is all teeth and bravado. Janelle doesn't have to squint. She could pick that smile out of a crowd of 1,000. Is that you? She asks Marcus, her voice a thread. He doesn't answer. He looks like someone holding his breath underwater, counting seconds with his heart. Do you remember this? Nia asks. There's no accusation in it, only rawness. The way you ask a paramedic if your chest will ever stop hurting. Marcus nods once. Yeah, he whispers. I remember. Janelle hears the sound of the coffee grinder, the rasp of milk steaming, a child laughing somewhere outside, a bus sighing to a stop. The world's ordinariness feels obscene. We were friends, Marcus says, speaking to the clipping because it's easier than speaking to the women. I didn't treat her right. I didn't treat a lot of people right. But I didn't. He stops. The sentence stays there, shivering. When she went missing, I thought she'd show up. You tell yourself that about poor girls, that they bounce, that they got cousins in another city. You tell yourself that so you don't have to go looking. Do you know who might have hurt her? Nia asks. The question is so clinical that it must be a shield. Marcus exhales, shaking his head. There was a man named Vaughn, he says, and the name tastes foul. Not his real one. The streets called him that. He'd smile like a preacher and slap you like a father. He had a mark on his hand here. He taps the webbing between his thumb and index finger, like a burn or a brand. We all did odd jobs for him. He said jump, we asked how high. One night there was a party at a house near the river, and Saad came, and later somebody said she left with Vaughn because he promised her a ride home. She never came back. Why didn't you say that to police? Janelle asks, heat rising. You had a name. I had a nickname, Marcus says, cheeks flushing. And a record. You think a cop in 1997 listened to a black boy with cuffs in his future about a black girl who used to sit on a stoop reading magazines. They wrote it up. They asked if she did drugs, if she was a good girl, like there's a list we all fail. Then they left. Nia's hand shakes just slightly as she pulls another paper from the envelope. I found this in my aunt's box, she says. It's a receipt from a storage place off Midlothian Turnpike. The signature is smudged. The date is April 13th, 1997. Janelle feels something coil in her gut. What was in storage? I don't know, Nia says. The unit number is here, but the place was bought out and then burned like 10 years ago. She swallows. I went down there with my aunt, and there's just a gap, like a tooth missing. How did your mother die, Nia? Janelle asks, gently. Nia's eyes harden. Nobody knows, she says. Or, if they do, they didn't tell me. They sit with that. Let me help, Janelle says, surprising herself. I teach. I don't have credentials, but I know how to find things people hide in writing. I know how to ask questions and keep asking when the answers are slick. She glances at Marcus. And we know someone who might know this Vaughn. His expression is a storm he can't forecast. You can't just walk into that world, Janelle, he says. That world bites. I don't plan to walk into it, she says. I plan to pull it into a room with light. He looks at her like he doesn't recognize the shape of her courage. Maybe he never had to. Before now. Do you have any more pictures? Janelle asks Nia. Just one more, Nia says. She flips to a photo of a young woman holding a toddler with tight black curls under a pink sun hat. The toddler's smile is open, unafraid. Is that you? Janelle asks. Yeah, Nia says, so softly it's almost a breath. Marcus looks like he might come apart. Janelle can see the math he's doing behind his eyes. If this is mine, then all the ways I failed add up to a number I can't pay. He reaches for the photo like it's permission to touch a past that's been close to him. Can I? He asks. Nia holds it out, but when his fingers brush the corner, she flinches. Not because he touched her, exactly, but because proximity can hurt when it's new. Sorry, she says quickly. This is all. It's okay, he says, and to Janelle's relief, he means it. We don't have to rush. Janelle studies the photo. The way Saad holds the toddler is both fierce and casual, like she knows she could put the child down and the child would orbit back. The river behind them glints, indifferent. Do you mind if I take a picture of this? Janelle asks. I want to talk to someone. Who? Nia asks. A friend, Janelle says. She used to be a reporter at the Post. Now she does communications for a nonprofit. She knows how to pull records. And my colleague's husband is a public records lawyer. He knows FOIA like scripture. FOIA? Nia asks. Freedom of Information Act, Janelle says. It's how you make the government give you its homework. Nia's mouth tilts, despite everything. I like that. They exchange numbers. Nia leaves with promises she tucks into her tote, like they might slip out if she loosens her grip. After she goes, Marcus sinks into a chair and covers his face. Janelle sits across from him and watches the light on the table creep like time. "She looks like you," he says finally, voice gone to thread. "She looks like herself," Janelle says, and he nods gratefully, like she allowed him a way not to drown. Janelle's friend, Alicia, picks up on the second ring. "Why are you calling me during working hours?" Alicia stage whispers. "Do you know how many acronyms I'm translating right now?" "I need a favor," Janelle says. "A real one." Alicia hears it, the particular gravity. "Okay," she says, voice shifting. "What's wrong?" Janelle describes the broad strokes, leaving out names until she has to say them. When she says, "Sod James," Alicia goes quiet. "I think I remember that," Alicia says. "Back when I was an intern. It was one of those briefs we never followed, because there was always something shinier to chase. Then a girl in my dorm put up a missing poster next to a flyer for a party with a cover charge." Janelle swallows the heat. "Can you pull anything?" "I can try," Alicia says. "Police reports, if they didn't lose them. Old case files. I might also know a retired detective who still smokes on his back porch and hates everyone equally. He schemes in Marlboro. He might talk if I give him something to be mad at." "Tell him to be mad at a system that forgot a girl," Janelle says. "I can do that," Alicia says. "Also, heads up with old cases. You stir the pot and sludge comes up. Make sure you got a lid for your house." Janelle glances at the kitchen where Zora is bent over homework, tongue peeking from the corner of her mouth as she conquers fractions. Her chest tightens. "I'll handle the lid," she says. Nights stretch. Days collect edges. Their household adjusts in tiny increments, like furniture being nudged a half-inch every day until the room is different, and you can't remember where to rest your coffee cup. Zora is the one who first notices Marcus's silence. "Dad," she says one evening, when he burns the garlic and curses under his breath. "You okay?" He nods quickly. "Just long day." "In that home office?" she teases, and he smiles, trying. "Even home needs a boss," he says. "Mine is mean." She tosses a dish towel at him. "Easy." Janelle watches them and then looks at the clock. "Alicia, 6:30 p.m. Call me. It's past time." Janelle steps onto the back porch to take the call. The cherry tree is bare except for a few stubborn leaves clinging like they have a point to prove. "I got something," Alicia says without preamble. Richmond PD has a one-page incident report on Sod James. Last seen leaving a house party near the river check. Report filed by an aunt. A friend named. That's it. Janelle says. "They redacted it?" "No," Alicia says. "They never filled it in." Janelle pinches the bridge of her nose. "And the detective?" "He remembers a guy who called himself Vaughn," Alicia says. "Not a nickname he gave himself, something folks called him because he wore suits like he was a bank manager. Syed Vaughn had a habit of finding girls who needed help and then helping himself. The detective thinks he might have had a badge in his past, or close enough to hold one. The kind of man who knows which questions end a conversation." Janelle feels the porch wood under her shoes like a timeline. "Where is he now?" "Your guy?" Alicia asks. "The detective said if he's smart, he's invisible. If he's not, he's in someone's suburban network, pretending he only ever sold real estate." "I want to find him," Janelle says. It surprises her how calm she is. "I thought you might," Alicia says. Janelle can hear her friend sliding open a drawer, riffling. "I'm sending you a list of names that smell like him. Donor registries. Shell companies that used to line up with an address out by the river." "And Janelle?" "Yeah? Be careful how you do this," Alicia says. "Black women who ask for records get mistaken for problems." "I am a problem," Janelle says, and Alicia laughs once, shocked into delight. "Then be an organized one," she says. When Janelle steps back inside, the kitchen is full of smoke, and Zora is waving a cutting board like a fan. Marcus is running the hood fan with the desperation of a man trying to shoo a ghost. Dinner's going to taste like church basement, he says. Good, Zora says. That's where the mac and cheese lives. They eat a little too fast and laugh a little too loud. And still the smoke detector chirps once with a comment nobody asked for. After Zora is asleep, Janelle shows Marcus the list Alicia sent. Names. Poe boxes. A storage unit company that changed hands 3 times. This one, Marcus says, tapping a name. Vaughn Realty, LLC, an address in Northern Virginia. He started that right after I left. Used to brag when he was drunk about how he was going to get legit. I thought he meant opening a bar. A realty company is better camouflage. Do you think he hurt Saad? Janelle asks. Marcus's jaw tightens. I think he hurt a lot of people. I don't know if he killed her. But if she's dead, his shadow is on it. Janelle breathes slow. Then we find him. And we make him say her name. He looks at her like he's both grateful and afraid. 2 days later, Nia texts. Can I come over? I don't want to keep meeting in places that close at 8. Janelle hesitates, then says yes. She tells herself that inviting the girl in is an act of faith, not a door propped open for trouble. She texts Nia their address and then walks through the house trailing a nervous eye, seeing it for what it must look like to someone who hasn't had a home that keeps promises family photos, a junk drawer, the good towels folded for show. Nia arrives with a backpack and a hardcover notebook decorated with stickers that read Protect Black Girls, Reparations Now, and Nitrogen Monoxide Gods, Nitrogen Monoxide Gatekeepers. She slips off her shoes at the door without being asked. Chanel's chest tightens at that, at the way some manners are not good habits, but learned self-protection. Welcome, Janelle says. Do you want water? Juice? Everything in this house has lemon in it. Water is great, Nia says, and then her eyes flick to the photos on the mantel. Zora in a tutu. Janelle in a cap and gown. Marcus holding a fish he pretended was bigger than it is. Nia takes them in like a person drinking from a fountain she isn't sure is for her. Zora steps out from the hallway and freezes, instantly embarrassed by her own curiosity. Hi, she says, soft as skates on a rink. Hi, Nia says, and their eyes meet. The air shifts. The resemblance is both shallow and deep, like faces in a family reunion where everyone shares a forehead. I'm Zora, Zora says. I love your stickers. Nia smiles. Take one, she says, pulling her notebook open. Not that one, though, she adds, pointing to Nitrogen Monoxide Gods, Nitrogen Monoxide Gatekeepers with a mock-serious frown. That's my favorite. Zora peels off Protect Black Girls and smooths it onto her pencil case, like a vow. Do you want to see my room? She asks in a rush, and Janelle's heart clenches, and then lets go. She nods once at Zora, a small green light. Zora beams. We have the good sour gummies, she says. Mom hides them in the quilt closet, but I know. Go ahead, Janelle says. Door open. They vanish down the hall, 2 new butterflies landing on the same branch. Marcus stands in the kitchen doorway, watching like a man who walked into sunlight he didn't believe in. He wipes a hand over his mouth. She shouldn't be here, he says under his breath, panic bumping in his voice. If I'm wrong, if this turns into a mess, she should be exactly where she is, Janelle says. Inside something solid. He looks like he wants to argue, and then remembers it's not about winning. He nods once and steps back. Janelle pours tea. Nia returns 5 minutes later with glitter on her fingertips, and Zora's cat ear headband askew on her head, grinning. Your kid is funny, she says. Then she drops her voice. She keeps asking if I can braid hair better than you. I can't braid to save my life, Janelle says, hands up. I'm a disappointment to my aunties. They smile, but the smile slides away as quickly as it came. Nia sits at the table and sets her notebook on the wood. I went by the old house where my aunt said my mother used to live, she says. It's boarded up, but a man across the street came out and asked what I wanted. He said he remembered her. He said she was sweet, and then he said she was fast, like those things cancel each other. Nia's voice goes flat to keep it from breaking. He said he saw her get into a car with a man in a suit. The car had a dent on the back bumper. He said the dent looked like a bite mark. Marcus swears softly. Janelle scribbles on a legal pad. Dent, back bumper, bite. She circles it. Nia takes a breath. He also said the man in the suit came back 3 days later and knocked on my aunt's door and told her not to worry. He said God watches over the faithful. The corner of Nia's mouth curls. He said God, but he smelled like whiskey. My aunt slammed the door in his face, and then she packed up our stuff. Nia's eyes flicked to Janelle's. We left that night. The air gets thinner. Janelle makes herself inhale. Do you think your aunt would talk to me? Nia's laugh is quick and without humor. She thinks talking is how trouble finds you. But maybe if you bring pie. I make a mean sweet potato, Janelle says, and a convincing apology. Nia ducks her head. I can try. Can you draw me the house? Janelle asks. Rough sketch, the street, where the neighbor stood. Nia's face changes. Oh, she says, surprised in a pleased way. Homework. Yeah, I can do that. She pulls a pen and begins to map the curve of the block, the boarded windows, the telephone pole that leans like it's tired of its job. Her hand is steady. Janelle imagines her as a girl, tracing lines to convince the world to hold still. When Nia leaves, Marcus walks her to the door and stands on the porch for a long minute after she's gone, staring out at the quiet street like it might shake loose a confession. Janelle washes the tea mugs and tries not to think about the way the newspaper clipping has made a home in her head. She tries not to think about what will happen if the DNA test be, because they will need to do a direct one now. A legal one. Not a school project confirms what her gut already believes. She tries not to think about a suit and a dented bumper. Her phone vibrates. It's Alicia. Jay, she says, I might have something rude. Rude is fine, Janelle says. I can handle rude. The retired detective, Alicia says, remembers a car. A Mercury with a dent like a giant took a bite. Belonged to a church deacon who never missed a Sunday but always sat near the exit. The deacon ran with Vaughn. The detective couldn't pin anything on either of them because nobody would talk, and the one person who might have talked vanished. Sod, Janelle says. Or someone who loved her enough to get hurt, Elisa says. He said there was a boy who hung around the deacon like he wanted to learn how to be a man. He couldn't remember the boy's name. Janelle swallows. The sync's drone fills the silence. I'm going to send you the deacon's name, Elisa says. He's still alive. Lives in a nice house in a nice cul-de-sac in Bowie. It's always Bowie. Alicia exhales. And I'm going to send you something else. A scanned report. It's thin. But there's a witness statement that got stapled to the back, probably by accident. It's signed M. The signature is messy. Could be anybody. Send it, Janelle says. The PDF loads. Janelle opens it with hands that are steady because someone has to be. The witness statement is 1 paragraph long, typed on a manual typewriter, words uneven, like teeth that never saw braces. Saw say James get into a dark Mercury with a dent by the license plate. Driver was male, black, mid-30s, suit and tie. Vaughn told us he was a deacon. I told Sad not to go. She laughed. Said I worry like somebody's dad. The signature is ink-blotted and indecipherable. A date, April 12, 1997. Janelle reads it again and again until the words stop being words and become sound. Marcus steps in from the porch, his face pale. What is it? He asks. She turns the screen and doesn't speak. He takes it, reads, and sways. He sets the phone on the table with a care that looks like reverence and shame braided together. "I should have done more," he says, voice a-scrape. "You were a child," Janelle says, "because it matters and also because it doesn't." He nods like she gave him a fact he can't metabolize. "What do we do now?" he asks. Janelle feels the answer rise up, simple as breath. "We go to Bowie," she says. "We talk to a man who owes us the truth." Marcus looks at her like she is the edge of a cliff and also the rope. "Tomorrow," he says. "Tomorrow," she echoes. The cul-de-sac is the kind that sells a dream-identical houses with 3 permitted variations. Crepe myrtles trimmed to little pink explosions in summer. Children riding scooters in helmets that make their heads look like impish planets. Chanel parks at the curb and watches a woman jog by with a golden retriever that could model for a brochure titled Harmony. It's a clear day, blue like a fresh bruise. Marcus sits in the passenger seat, fingers drumming his knee. "You sure?" he asks. "No," Janelle says, "but I'm here." He nods. He's wearing a button-down and a jacket like armor. She's in a sweater that makes her feel like herself soft, dependable, not to be underestimated. They walk up the path to the house Alicia marked. The lawn is aggressively neat. The front porch has fake pumpkins even though it's February. Like the owner forgot to change seasons, and nobody corrected him because it would require intimacy. Janelle presses the doorbell. Somewhere inside, a chime sings a song about welcome. The door opens. A man in his late 50s stands there, all cologne and thin smile. His hair is cut short and edged sharp. He looks at them with the careful courtesy of someone who knows how to escort you out of a conversation without using his hands. "Can I help you?" he asks. "Are you Deacon Harold Lyle?" Janelle says. The smile doesn't move, but everything under it does. "I am," he says slowly. "Do I know you?" "No," Janelle says. "But you might remember a girl named Sad James." He does not blink. That tells Janelle something about his training. He lets the name pass over his face without landing. "This is not appropriate," he says, smile freezing harder. "If you have church business, you should make an appointment." "This isn't church business," Janelle says. "It's human business. It's a truth you owe." "Ma'am," he says, a warning shaped like a word. Marcus steps forward before she can stop him. "You know me," he says, and his voice is a low tide. "Maybe not like this. But you know me, Mr. Lyle." The deacon's eyes flick to Marcus's face, and for a heartbeat, the mask stutters. He sees it. The boy becomes the man. The past lines up with the present, like a transparency laid over a map. "Go away," he says flatly, and he moves to shut the door. Janelle puts her hand out. She doesn't touch him. She touches the house, the edge of the door, anchors herself. "You don't get to hide," she says. "Not today." He looks at her hand with quiet fury. "Get off my property," he says, "or I will call the police." Janelle smiles. Not sweet, not threatening, just real. "Please do," she says. "And when they come, we can ask them why this report." She pulls a printout from her bag. The witness statement Alicia sent never made it into a real investigation. His nostrils flare. He stares at the paper like it's a wasp he doesn't want to swat. "That means nothing," he says. "It means you were there," Janelle says. "It means you put a girl into a car, and she never came out." He takes a deep breath, like he's practicing for a sermon. When he speaks, his voice is measured, trained. "Young people," he says, "make choices." "I warned her about the company she kept." "Which was you," Janelle says. Behind him, a television murmurs a noon talk show, light laughter canned and ready. The house smells like lemon cleaner and meatloaf. It is offensive how normal it insists on being. "We will leave," Marcus says suddenly, and Janelle turns, startled. He's looking at the deacon with an expression Janelle has not seen on his face. a stillness that is not surrender. "We will leave, Mr. Lyle," he repeats, "but I'm going to say her name. Right here, on your step, where you pretend you never met her. I'm going to say it so it gets under your paint." The deacon's smile cracks. For a second, something ancient and ugly shows through. "Watch yourself," he says softly. "Sod," Marcus says, voice steady. "Sod James." He says it again. Janelle joins him. They become a small, stubborn chorus. "Sod James, Sod James, Sod James." The door slams so hard the fake pumpkins wobble. A blind jerks closed in the front window. They stand on the porch, breathing like runners. Chanel's legs shake, and she lets them. She reaches for Marcus's hand. He takes it, squeezes once, lets go. "That man is going to call somebody," he says. "Maybe police. Maybe somebody who doesn't wear a uniform anymore." "Good," Janelle says. "Let him send the truth to my house." "That's not how it works," he says. He looks suddenly small, and then he straightens like he remembered his spine. "We need to be ready." They walk back to the car. Chanel's phone pings. It's a text from an unknown number. She opens it, and the world narrows. "Stop asking questions about 1997, Mrs. Cooper. Your daughter walks home from school at 3:10. It would be a shame if she forgot the way." Janelle reads it twice, then shows Marcus. His face goes white, and then red. "We're calling the police," he says, voice shaking. "And telling them what?" Janelle says, even as her hands are already moving, tapping 911, "That someone is threatening us with our own life?" "Yes," he says, "exactly that." She hits call. She forces her voice to be clear when the dispatcher answers. She gives their names, their address, the content of the text. "Our daughter is 12, she says, and the word 12 feels like tissue paper over a flame. "We will send a unit," the dispatcher says. "Do you have any idea who may have sent the message?" "Yes," Janelle says, "and the image of the slammed door is a blueprint." "We do." "Please go home," the dispatcher says. "Wait for the officers." They drive in a silence that has teeth. The neighborhoods blur. Chanel's mind runs a route like muscle memory. The time Zora leaves homeroom, the corner where she always stops to pet the fat neighborhood cat, the crosswalk where drivers pretend they don't see small bodies. Chanel's hand pulses on her knee. They pull up to their house just as the school bus hisses to a stop 3 blocks away. Chanel's feet are on the sidewalk before the car settles, and Marcus is right behind her. They don't run, they move like sprinting, would make God look away. The bus door folds back. Children spill like marbles. Then there's Zora's green backpack, her head tilted as she tells a story with her hands. Janelle doesn't realize she's crying until the wind turns a tear cold on her cheek. "Mom," Zora says when she sees them. "Why are you?" "Come on," Janelle says, taking her hand. "We're going home." "Did something happen?" "Yes," Marcus says. "Somebody forgot who they are." 2 patrol cars pull up minutes later, lights spinning silent. A black female officer steps out and softens when she sees Zora in the doorway. She introduces herself as Officer Lake. Her partner, a white man with a mustache that looks drawn on, stays near the car, arms crossed. Officer Lake listens, takes notes, asks Janelle to forward the text. She reads it, lips pressed together. "We can do a drive-by at dismissal for the next few days," she says. "We can also file a report and attach this to it." "Do you have a name for the person you suspect?" Janelle hesitates, then says, "Deacon Harold Lyle, Bowie, associated with a man called Vaughn." We think her voice is level because she refuses to give this woman a version of herself that someone else could call. Hysterical, we think they might be connected to a missing person case from 1997. Sod James. Officer Lake's eyes flicker. "That name is familiar," she says, "from a true crime podcast a few years back." They did an episode on girls who went missing in the 90s and got covered like weather. Janelle didn't know about the podcast. Another thing the world did in public, while justice stayed private. We'll note it, Officer Lake says, and we'll make sure there's a presence at dismissal. But she glances toward her partner, and Janelle can tell there's a conversation she doesn't want to have in front of him. But keep your people close for the next few days, okay? She lowers her voice further. And if you see a dark Mercury with an old dent, call me before you call anybody else. She hands over a card. Her eyes meet Janelle's with a brief understanding that skips past training and goes straight to the part of the job that stole some of her sleep. After the officers leave, the house feels like a held breath. Janelle sits on the couch with Zora tucked under her arm, inhaling the smell of her hair, a mix of strawberry conditioner and pencil eraser. Marcus stands by the window like a guard and a ghost. "Mom?" Zora asks. "What's going on?" Janelle could say nothing. She could say grown-up stuff. She could say we'll talk later, which is how parents teach children to pack their fear with their homework. Instead, she says, "A long time ago, a girl your age grew into a woman who didn't get to grow anymore. We're trying to make sure we know why. In the meantime, we'll walk home with you." Zora absorbs this. She nods slowly, like she recognized this kind of truth from books, even if she hasn't yet from life. "Okay," she says, "but can we still get dumplings Friday?" Janelle laughs, startled. "Yes," she says. "Especially Friday." That night, when the house is finally still, Janelle opens the notebook where she's kept wedding vows and recipes and homework assignments that mattered. She turns to a fresh page and writes in a neat hand. Questions for Deacon Lyle, for Vaughn, for the river. She lists them like a liturgy. She leaves space beneath each, like she believes answers exist. She is about to close the book when her phone buzzes again. A number she doesn't recognize. She hesitates, then answers. "Mrs. Cooper?" The voice is male, gravel shifted under tires. "This is going to sound like a prank." "It isn't. My name is Raymond Davis, retired RPD. Alicia told me to call if I remembered something that would make me choke." He clears his throat. "I just remembered something. In '97, the church where your deacon holds court did a building fund drive. A donor stepped in. All cash, no questions. He signed the ledger with a flourish like he was leaving a tip. Name on it was Vaughn, no last name. But the usher who brought me the ledger kept a copy. She said one day she might need it." "Does she still have it?" Janelle asks. "She's 81, Raymond says, and she don't throw anything away." He inhales, and Janelle can hear the older man's anger, ash and ember. "You come to Richmond. I'll take you to her." Janelle looks at Marcus standing in the doorway, watching her with eyes that learn new shapes of fear and resolve by the hour. She thinks of Nia's careful handwriting mapping a street, of Zora's sticker declaring what the world should already know. "We'll be there," Janelle says. She hangs up. She writes 2 new words at the bottom of her list, underlining them until the paper bruises. Go south. And outside, deep and distant, a car idles a beat too long at the corner before sliding away into the night. The morning they drive to Richmond, the sky is a lid. Janelle wakes before the alarm and lies still until the house becomes sound water in pipes. A car starting somewhere, Zora shifting in sleep like a swimmer rolling over. She eases out of bed and packs a bag with snacks, a phone charger, a legal pad whose first page already bears grooves from the force of her pen. She tucks her wedding ring into her jewelry box and chooses a simple band instead, because she cannot bear for questions about her marriage to become part of a stranger's inventory. Marcus comes downstairs in a button-down, the same jacket as the day before. He looks like a man applying for the right to rewrite something. He's quiet until he sees Janelle's hand, the plain ring. "You don't have to do that," he says. "I didn't do it for you," she says, gentle and true. It's a strategy. He nods once, accepting the math without arguing the equation. Zora materializes in the kitchen in pajama shorts and a hoodie that swallows her. Can I come? She asks, hopeful, unafraid in that new way kids are before they learn to ration it. School, Janelle says. Officer Lake is doing dismissal check-ins this week, and Auntie Dee is picking you up after. You can text us so much we get sick of you. I'm already sick of me, Zora says, but she lets herself be kissed, accepts a jelly donut into her fist, and rolls her eyes when Marcus tells her to keep the front door locked even when she's inside. You say that like I haven't been training for the apocalypse since I was 5, she says, and for 1 second, everything is normal and better than normal, because there is a crack in normal where tenderness leaks in. They start the car. An unfamiliar sedan idles at the corner. Marcus clocks it, a flick of his eyes. Janelle feels the note of it in her chest, a new frequency. She exhales and pulls away. The sedan doesn't follow. The Beltway becomes I-95. Maryland slips to Virginia in a sign and a change in the shape of trees. Alicia texts, "Send me live updates. Don't be heroes unless you have to." Janelle thumbs back a heart and then types, "We're going to talk to an usher with a ledger." Alicia replies, "If she offers you mints in a crinkly dish, take them. If she offers you tea, pretend to drink and then set it down where she can see your respect." The mundanity steadies Janelle in a way that preaching wouldn't. They don't talk much for the first hour. The quiet isn't cold, it's concentration. Around Fredericksburg, Marcus clears his throat. "You keep looking in the mirror," he says. "I keep seeing our car like it's a lesson," Janelle says, "Rye, don't blink." He nods. The turnpike signs roll past like the names of cousins. Midlothian looks back at them from the green of a highway marker, and Marcus flinches like it said his government name. "Tell me something good about her," Janelle says. "About Sod." He stares out the passenger window, watches trees thin into old brick and fresh stucco. "She used to correct people when they mispronounced her name," he says. "Even when it cost her something. Even when correcting someone meant they looked at her like she was trouble." He smiles despite himself. "She could braid without looking," he adds. "She'd be doing somebody's hair and reading a magazine and following a conversation, and somehow each part of a part would come out straight like geometry. She wore gold hoops with her church dress, and my mother said it was tacky. Sod said it was theology." Janelle lets that picture settle. "Did you love her?" She asks, not to wound herself, but to make room for the truth to breathe. "I was 17, he says, a small, sad laugh. "I thought I loved whoever looked at me like I was worth what I wanted to be worth. I don't think I loved anybody enough to give up what I was protecting." "And what was that?" Janelle asks. "The idea that I wasn't like my father," he says into the glass. "The idea that I could leave Richmond, and that would erase Richmond in me." She keeps her eyes on the road because if she looks at him, she will say something either too sharp or too soft. Raymond's directions take them off the highway into a neighborhood where the houses are close enough to share gossip and grief without crossing the street. They park in front of a 1-story brick with a porch just large enough for 2 chairs, both occupied by ceramic angels. The door opens before they knock. Miss Ernestine is tiny and straight-backed, skin like polished walnuts, hair wrapped in a scarf the color of sunrise. She wears a church usher uniform like a habit she chose herself. White blouse, long black skirt, low heels you could walk a mile in. "Lord, you're late," she says, and then she lifts her chin to the sky. "Forgive me, Father. These children grew up on Northern time." "We hit traffic," Raymond says from his own car, grinning around a mouth behind which, Janelle knows, there are grudges catalogued with the care of a man who never forgave easy. He hugs Miss Ernestine and then steps back. "You remember that thing we talked about?" "I remember everything important," she says, and the way she looks at Marcus makes him stand up straighter. They sit at the table in a kitchen that has fed teenagers for half a century. Ms. Ernestine sets out glasses of water and a plate of cookies that taste like butter. Learn to be a sermon. If you were here under any flag but truth, she says to Janelle, I'd make you leave and pray for your sense from the steps. But you said the girl's name on my phone like you was stitching something back up. She nods, so here we are. Thank you for seeing us, Janelle says. We won't take more of your time than we need to. You'll take what it takes, Ms. Ernestine says. Time ain't mine. She disappears down the hall and returns with a cardboard box that has been taped and retaped so often the seams look like scars. She cuts it open with a church program's corner and pulls out a ledger wrapped in a pillowcase like it's a child. I was an usher when your deacon thought God was a bank, she says. He'd have us tally up the building fund right then and there, whispering the amount to the pastor like it was the kind of number that sets a man free. Some weeks it was nickels and Collard's money. Then one week a man walked in with a smile like a lie and told us to treat ourselves. She taps the ledger. I made a copy of the page because the Holy Spirit told me not to trust the original to the hands it was falling into. She opens the ledger and slides it around for Janelle to see. The ink is faded, but the lines are neat. Names march down the page: Sister Bernice, $5. Youth Choir, $17.35. Anonymous, $2. Then, larger than the rest, written with a hand that believed in itself, Vaughn, $5,000 cash. Janelle's stomach turns cold at the figure. It's not a drug lord's flex. It's a calculated amount meant to look generous and not trigger federal attention. Did he sign anything else? She asks. He signed the visitor log, Ms. Ernestine says, almost gleeful, like she's been waiting to perform a reveal for 26 years. He wrote Vaughn, and then drew a little cross like that, made him less slippery. I pressed later and found out his last name wouldn't stay still, but I know his face. What face? Marcus asks, brittle. Describe him. Skin like a winter pecan, she says. Sharp hairline. Scar right here. She touches the webbing between thumb and finger. Wore a watch like it meant something. Walked around like he wanted to be mistaken for security. That's him, Marcus says, voice dull and certain. I also made copies of pledges that week, she says, because the pastor told us to call people at home and encourage them to keep the faith. She flips 2 pages and points. Harold Lyle, $500, monthly. Beside it, in smaller hand, a note. Ref by V. Janelle stares. Referred by V. Folks think sin is all appetite, Ms. Ernestine says, but mostly it's administration. It's who you know, and how you write it down so nobody sees they're being watched. Do you mind if I photograph these? Janelle asks. I mind if you don't, Ms. Ernestine says. And I mind if you drop 'em, and I don't get to see the headlines when the truth breaks something. While Janelle takes photos, Raymond leans back in his chair and lights a cigarette he doesn't light. He holds it like the idea of a cigarette. There's more, he says. When Sad went missing, we knocked on doors in a radius big enough to include people who wanted to talk when nobody else was listening. A boy told me about a car with a bite-shaped dent. He looks at Marcus, who is rigid and quiet. He also told me he pawned a gold locket to pay for Sade's storage unit because she asked him to. Janelle goes still. The room finds a new silence. Marcus swallows. I pawned it with her, he says, voice small. We went together. She said if she had cash, she could keep her aunt from kicking her out. She said a girl who could hold her own in a house didn't end up with a deacon making house calls. I told her I'd get it back. Then she was gone. I went back to the pawn shop, and the locket was already gone. Raymond watches his face like a lie detector that prefers to discern truth. He nods once, satisfied and disgusted at the same time, The shop's still there, he says. New owner. Old receipts. People in this town burn buildings to get rid of proof and then leave drawers intact because paperwork looks boring until it starts talk. Ms. Ernestine reaches into the box again and pulls out a plastic sandwich bag with a folded slip of paper inside. And then there's this, she says. We do prayer cards. Leave your request. Someone will pray. You can check anonymous. I found this one in the bottom of the basket after the ushers handed the cards up. I don't know how it didn't get read out loud that Sunday, except I think something was working overtime to keep a girl's business from getting gossiped by the wrong mouth. Janelle takes the bag and slides the card out carefully, like it might dissolve. The handwriting is neat but rushed. Pray for me. I am late and scared. Please pray God gives me courage to say no. S. Underneath, as if added later, V says he can fix things. H says he can save me. I don't trust either. Janelle places the card on the table. The room stretches around it. Marcus rubs his eyes, hard, thumb and forefinger, pressing until he sees spots. I should have. You should have what? Ms. Ernestine says. Sharp enough to slice guilt where it won't heal. You were a boy in a place that eats boys with manners. You didn't make a grown man sin. Don't you sit at my table and take what isn't yours to hold, unless you're going to hold it and swing it at someone who deserves it. The words land like a palm on a back bracing. Marcus straightens, breathes, nods. Janelle reaches for his hand under the table and squeezes once. Not mercy, but solidarity. Raymond clears his throat. There's one more stop we should make, he says. That pawn shop. And if our guy is who he thinks he is, he knows by now you stepped on his porch. We should make noise while we're moving, so he can't get you cornered and quiet. Noise is my ministry, Miss Ernestine says. I'll come too. You'll sit down, Raymond says, soft command. You done your part. If anybody comes to your door, you call me and you call your nephew with the shotgun, and you put a kettle on for the devil and tell him he can wait on the steps. She cackles. You always did talk holiness like it came with a toothbrush, she says, but she sits. She tucks the ledger back into the pillowcase and pats it. You make copies. You make more copies. You rain paper on a man until he can't find his own name under it. At the pawn shop, fluorescent light flattens everybody into the color of exhaustion. The man behind the counter is 40-something, arms inked, eyes friendly, because friendliness sells. Raymond flashes his retired badge like a business card that asks for respect with a history lesson. Looking for records from '97, he says. Gold locket, initials S.J., possibly pawned by a young man named... He glances at Marcus. Marcus shakes his head, a small no. People back then gave fake names like they were trading candy, Raymond says. Which is why I'm asking for the paper. The man looks like someone measuring risk and reward. We keep the books, he says, for the state and our own hide. He disappears into a back room and returns with 2 gray binders and a receipt spike. That looks like a weapon a cashier would legally own. He flips. 97, 97. His finger stops. Here, he says. Gold heart locket, S.J. etched, seller, M. Hart. Janelle's heart drops through her shoes. She forces her voice to calm. Read that again? He smooths the page. Hart. Marcus leans over the counter, careful not to reach, as if his fingers might trigger an alarm. Hart, he says, as if repeating it changes the past. You went by Hart? Raymond asks. No, Marcus says. I didn't. I was Cooper then, like I am now. Hart is... He looks at Janelle. His mouth opens, closes. Hart is Nia, Janelle says, the room tilting. Her name. Her mother's last name. The pawnshop hum doubles in Janelle's ears. The fluorescent lights buzz like a hive. She steadies herself on the glass. What's the date? She asks. The man traces the line. April 11th, he says. Day before your missing person report. And who bought it? Raymond asks. The man flips pages. No buyer recorded, he says. Sometimes we messed up and wrote it in the wrong place. Or sold for scrap. A lot of jewelry went to the refinery when the economy dipped. It didn't go to scrap, Marcus says, certainty hardening. Saad wouldn't let it go to scrap. That was her mother's. Chanel's brain races, tire flames on a track. Heart. What if it wasn't you? She says, looking at Marcus. What if someone else used heart to signal something? Or what if? She fumbles it in her hands. The pieces don't want to connect, because connection would mean Said had a plan nobody knew. We need the ticket, she says. The pawn slip. Long gone, the man says, apologetic. He taps the book. This is the ghost of it. Raymond writes the reference number down anyway. He gives the man a card that says, call me if your memory wakes up in the night. They step out into air that smells like rain, thinking about falling apart and deciding not to. In the parking lot, a dark Mercury slides past slow enough to be polite and fast enough to be denial. Janelle doesn't see the dent, but the back bumper looks like a mouth. Raymond's jaw tightens. It in the cars, he says. No heroics. They head for the older usher's house in a stagger that says we're not together if you're squinting. The Mercury doesn't turn. Relief is a thing so cheap, a body can overdose on it. Janelle exhales a laugh that isn't a laugh at all. Don't, Marcus says gently. You'll make it real. What's not real? She says. The part where we have time, he says. Back at Miss Ernestine's, Janelle uses the bathroom and splashes water on her face until she can call it sensation instead of panic. When she comes out, her phone buzzes. A text from Nia. Auntie's willing to talk. She said she ain't going to Richmond, but she'd meet you at the library in Hyattsville with pie. A beat, then. She said to tell you she's not promising not to cuss. Janelle smiles despite the way her throat's trying to close. She types cussing as a language and adds a pie emoji, which feels both too small and exactly right. Raymond insists they leave in the daylight. Most men who believe in darkness don't understand they're visible at noon, he says. Let's make their mistakes teach us. He hugs Miss Ernestine like an apology and tells her to keep her front porch light on all day. She tells him to stop pretending he didn't love her once. He blushes, a miracle. On the drive back, Marcus asks for a detour. One place, he says. It'll take 5 minutes. Chanel's stomach says no. Her sense of the narrative says yes. She follows his finger to a street that runs like a vein along the river. He points to a sagging house with a porch falling off. That, he says. That's where the party was. Janelle pulls over and leaves the engine running. Tell me, she says. He closes his eyes and lets the film in his head play on the back of his lids. It was April, he says. We were stupid, and we were right about how the world looked and wrong about everything else. Saad wore a skirt with daisies and a denim jacket. She danced like she summoned the music. I kept trying to get her to leave because Vaughn was there, and he had that smile. He always smiled before he became a storm. She told me I worry like I'm somebody's daddy. Then Lyle showed up, wearing a suit at a house full of kids. He liked the way it made him important. He said the word mentorship like it had a tax deduction. He told Saad he could take her home because the bus was done for the night. I told him no. He told me my mouth was going to get me hurt. Saad rolled her eyes. She went anyway. I watched the taillights at the end of the block. I told myself I was being dramatic. He puts his head back against the seat. I went to the river, he says. I sat there until the water sounded like yes. Then the sun came up, and I went home and wished I could turn it off. Janelle wants to put her hand on his knee and also wants to reach through the car window and shake the ghost of a boy who let the river sing him to sleep while a girl learned something about men she shouldn't have had to. She does neither. She starts the car again. They head north, each a little sicker and a little clearer. By the time they hit Quantico, traffic bunches like geese. Janelle drums her fingers on the wheel and reviews the day like flashcards. Ledger, referral, prayer card, pawn slip with M. Hart, Mercury, Deacon's smile cracking, Vaughn's cross in the book. It all adds up to a simple truth disguised as a complex conspiracy. Men who believed they'd never be asked the right question have been storing their answers in plain sight. Her phone chimes with an email. Familidna, new message. Her skin tightens. She glances at Marcus. He hears the intake of her breath and shakes his head. Later, he says. Not while we're moving. She obeys because she's suddenly superstitious enough to believe that opening a message could make a car cut her off. They pull into their driveway at dusk, the house gold in its own light. Chanel's shoulders drop. 2 beats later, she feels like an idiot for letting relief trespass. The front door is cracked. Stay, she says to Marcus. No, come, no. She laughs at herself, unsteady. We go in together. She calls for Zora as she opens the door, voice light because she refuses to teach fear as a marinade. The living room looks like itself, except for what isn't there. The family photos have been face down. The drawers of the sideboard are open and tidy, like someone made a point about how easily they could have taken more. Chanel's notebook, the one with Go South underlined 3 times, sits in the center of the dining table with a single page torn free and left like an accordion. On it, in thick black marker, the river is a mouth. Stop feeding IT. What does that even mean? Marcus says, whispering like the walls are listening. It means we made somebody switch from cute threats to poetry, Janelle says steadily. And that's when cowards get sloppy. Zora barrels down the hall. Mom, chill, she says, reading their faces. Officer Lake did the drive-by, and Auntie D made me finish my science homework before I could watch anything, and I'm starving. And also, wow, did you flip the frames on purpose? Is this an art installation? Because. Her voice trails. She sees the page. She sees the way Janelle holds her phone like a flare gun. She sees the sweat on Marcus's upper lip. There's a beat where she's still a child. Then it falls, and she's someone else's age for a second. And Janelle can't tell if it's 17 or 30. Who was here? Zora asks. A person who forgot himself, Janelle says. She leads Zora to the couch, tucks her under her arm like a secret she's keeping from the world. We're okay. We'll put everything back. We'll change the locks. We'll be louder. Can I sleep in your room? Zora asks, a last ask from a smaller age. Yes, Janelle says. Every night you want. Officer Lake arrives with 2 new officers and a weariness that looks like muscle. She walks through the house with careful eyes, asks questions the young ones forget because they're looking for forced entry like a TV show. They had a key or magic, she says, pointing to the lock. No pry marks, no busted frame. Did you give a key to anyone recently? Dee has one, Janelle says. Dee is not cracking her sister's door to play word jumble with her photos, Marcus says. We changed the locks last year, Janelle says, when we got the new storm door. Officer Lake writes that down and then looks at the face-down frames. This is theater, she says, and the corners of her mouth flatten. Folks who make messes for a living think they're playwrights. They like to watch their audience. She points to the streetlight filtering through the blinds. We're going to park across the way for a few nights, she says. Not because they'll come back. They already said what they came to say, but because you deserve to see a light and know it's for you. After the officers leave, Janelle finally opens the email. New message from Nia. I got an email from Familidna too. Can I send it? Janelle replies yes. A screenshot comes through. New relative match. Marcus Cooper, parent-child, 49.9% DNA. The room tilts for real this time, and then steadies, because the truth always thinks it's a magic trick until you see where the hands were the whole time. Marcus sits down. He's not the kind of man who collapses. He just sits, all the scaffolding sagging for a second, because it can. Janelle takes his hand. His thumb shakes. Zora peers at the screen, reads it, and looks up with a face that was always older than any test result. "So we're sisters," she says, like trying on a new jacket and liking the way it rests on her shoulders. Janelle texts Nia, "Yes, you are. We love you. We will be safe. Meet us tomorrow at the library with your aunt and Pi." She adds because she can, "We went to Richmond. We have papers. We have names. We have questions." Nia's response is a heart, then 3 dots then. "My aunt says she's ready to tell you the name she's been holding in her mouth since 1997. She said to bring extra plates." Janelle exhale laughs again, this time because she wants to insult the fear by enjoying the absurdity that everything important is happening around Pi. Marcus squeezes her hand, as if he knows she needs the pressure to make the shape of her own body feel real. Night falls like something shoved it. The house breathes. They put the frames back upright, one by one, like resurrections too small to make the news. Janelle tapes the threat under her legal pad and writes on it with a ballpoint until the tip cuts. Names are mouths. We feed them truth. Sleep is a negotiation. At 2, Janelle wakes to the sound of the heater kicking on and believes for a full minute that it's a car outside. She sits up, listens, relaxes when the air settles. Beside her, Marcus murmurs and rolls, his hand seeking her even as his brain sprints down a dark hallway. Zora sprawls at the foot of the bed like a cat who decided to believe in safety because it felt better. At 9 the next morning, the Hyattsville Library's fluorescent lights are kinder than the pawn shops. The carpet is the color of patience. Nia sits at a table with her aunt, who is small and fierce, her mouth permanently pressed into the shape of a dare. On the table sits a bakery box that reads MRS. Patricia's pies in a font that looks like it survived a hurricane and kept its lipstick. The aunt stands when Janelle and Marcus approach. She looks them up and down like a T.S. Achunho who does not owe you a smile. "I'm Aunt Patrice," she says as if the title requires capital letters. "I'm not good at this. Neither are we." Janelle says Patricia's eyes flicker to Marcus. "You the boy," she says, not a question. "I'm the boy," he says, no flinch. "You said you'd take her home once, and then you didn't." She says it's no more accusation than gravity is an insult. "You're going to tell me your age, and I'm going to tell you you were a child, and it's going to make me mad anyway." He nods. "Yes, ma'am?" She opens the pie box like a woman, opening a file she's afraid of. "We're going to eat," she says, "because my sister liked sweets, and I refuse to tell this story with my mouth dry." They eat. The crust is holy pie is always a ritual with the people who need to speak, have an excuse to pause between sentences and lift their fork. When the plates are a mess and the box is a statement about how fast grief can make things disappear, Patrice wipes her mouth with a brown napkin and begins. Saad was a smart girl with dumb taste in men, because she had an artist's eye, and men were hanging everywhere like paintings, she says. "Our mother died when we were teenagers, and I raised her until I got tired, and then I loved her from down the block, because loving up close was a way to end up in jail." A deacon came around the house, acting like he was God's assistant. He said he had a program for girls like her. I told him our girl was not a program. He said I was ungrateful for blessings. I told him he could bless a new pair of shoes with his mouth if he wanted to keep talking. She snorts. He came back anyway. "And Vaughn?" Janelle asks carefully. Patricia's eyes go still. "He came when he wanted something," she says. "He didn't call himself Vaughn to me. He called himself Mr. Vale. Same clothes, same watch, scar, right here, like. God pinched him, and he learned the wrong lesson. He told me he had opportunities for sod, modeling gigs, promotions at the store. He said she could make good money, and I could stop being so bitter. I told him if he wanted to help, he could buy groceries, and then disappear. He bought groceries. He did not disappear. Nia swallows like swallowing is work, Auntie, she says. I'm telling it, Patrice says, but she softens her tone by a degree. Sad came to me one night and said she was late. Not scared, because she didn't like to give fear the courtesy, but she wanted money for a doctor. Who would tell her she was imagining it, and then tell her what to do if she wasn't? I told her to go to the free clinic. She told me the free clinic was where you go if you want everybody's aunties to know your business. She asked for cash. I gave her the last of what I had and told her to bring back change. Patrice looks down at her hands. 2 days later, I found a paper on the table, she says. She reaches into her tote and pulls out a sheet that has been folded and unfolded into the idea of itself. She slides it across the table. At the top, Protective Order Information Form. Half completed. The perpetrator's name field reads V with a line after it, like the hand intended to keep writing and stopped under relationship church. Friend, boss. A note in the margin. Harold says he can fix things. Janelle's skin prickles. Did you file it? She asks uselessly because she knows the answer. I took it to the courthouse, Patrice says. A bitter laugh lodged sideways. The woman behind the glass told me there were no bruises in the right places. She told me Saad had to be the one. I told her Saad had a job, and they would fire her if she asked for a morning off. She shrugged in the official manner. I told her she had a face only a mother could love. She told me to watch my tone. I went home. The next day, Saad was gone. She takes a breath. A week later, I found a pawn ticket in the trash. M. Hart, she says, glancing at Marcus. I told myself it was my signature. I told myself I had done it in my sleep, a miracle to help my sister. Then I told myself it was a man pretending at kin because he thought he had the right to the name. People been stealing our names since boats. Marcus leans forward. I didn't do that, he says. I believe you now, she says, and she turns to Nia and touches her knuckles like the way you touch a hot pan. Quick and with respect. I didn't back then. I told myself a story about boys and responsibility that made my chest hurt and kept me from doing the kind of looking I was supposed to do in case I found the wrong eyes looking back. She digs in her bag again and pulls out a Polaroid. A woman in a denim jacket and hoops is standing with a man whose smile is all performance. The man's hand is on Said's shoulder, like he owns her, not by touch, but by context. He is 10 years older than he wants anybody to think. His watch gleams. Janelle blinks at the face and feels the familiarity tilt into something new. That's not Lyle, Marcus says. No, Patrice says. That's Mr. Vale. Janelle looks at the picture, then down at the ledger photos on her phone, at the visitor log where a hand drew a cross with the bravado of a man who thinks he's funny. She zooms in. The cross is not a cross. It's an emblem. Do you see that? She asks, sliding the phone to Marcus. At the end of Vaughn? A sword, he says. Or an anchor, Janelle says. Or a logo. Nia leans over. My friend's dad does logos for a living, she says. He draws them until he can't see straight. He says people think they're calling cards. He also says rich men who don't want to be Googled still want to be recognized. Patrice huffs. Rich men, she says. And poor girls. Nia's phone buzzes. She glances at it, and her face goes weirdly blank. It's from the DNI site, she says. There's a message from someone named VR Ministries. It says, congratulations on finding new family. We are a faith-based group that helps reunite families separated by sin and the system. We'd love to talk about your story. The Lord works through data. She looks up, revolted. How did they find me? They watch the boards, Janelle says. They cast lines into the water and see who's hungry. What should I say? Nia asks. Nothing, Janelle says. Not yet. Let them want. Patrice checks the clock and stands like a spring. I got to get to work, she says. People want what they want right on time for lunch, even if they order a sad sandwich. She looks at Marcus again, and it is not forgiveness, but permission. You go find those men, she says. And if you can't find them, make it so they can't leave the house without tripping over the sound of their name. I will not bury another memory without a fight. They part with pie crumbs on their fingers and a plan that doesn't fit on paper, but feels like a map drawn in a hand that trusts itself. Janelle and Marcus step out into a wind that picked up while they weren't looking. Across the street, a sedan that might be any sedan and is everything idles too long. Home, Marcus says. Home, then lockbox, Janelle says. And then your mother. He startles. Mine? She knows more than she thinks she does, Janelle says. People mama age remember things you didn't realize were evidence. The deacon came to that house. That man sat on that couch. She's been protecting you from the conversation she didn't want to have since 1997. He swallows. She'll kill me if I tell her I got a daughter. She'll kill you softer if you don't, Janelle says. They drive home. The living room looks like itself again because they made it, not because the universe restored it. Janelle slides the ledger photos and the prayer card into a manila envelope and tapes it shut. She writes for Alicia on the front, then for the internet under it, because she understands now that the courts are one theater and the public is another. Marcus's mother opens her door before they even lift their hands, just like Miss Ernestine did. Why you got your shoulders like that? She asks, not wasting a hello. We need to talk, Marcus says. You've needed to talk since you came out hollering, she says, but she lets them in. Her house smells like collards and lemon pledge. The table holds a bowl of mail, a Bible, and the remote, like a shrine to American living. She stands with her hands on her hips and waits. Marcus tells her. He doesn't pretty it. He says daughter and 97 and sod, and his mother makes a small sound, the kind strong women make when the body tries to cry and the heart grabs the throat. She sits down slowly, one hand bracing on the chair back as if the floor might tilt. I knew that girl would be a storm, she says, not unkind. She wore her hair like she belonged to herself. Lord, a granddaughter. Her eyes get soft, and then steel returns like the ring on a pan. You went to that man's house? She asks. We did, Janelle says. He threatened our kid. Marcus's mother's face does something complicated. You called the police? Yes, Janelle says. She nods like they passed a midterm. Then you call your cousins, she says. Not to fight, to witness. She taps the Bible. The good book says to bring witnesses, but the streets say it too. You go see that deacon, and you bring men who will look him in the face, and not blink, and not threaten, and not twitch. He'll find himself in a mirror, and maybe he'll remember he was born. We're going to Richmond again, Janelle says. We have an usher and a ledger, and a retired detective and a prayer card, and a pawn book with M. Hart like a riddle, and a picture of Vaughn that is actually Mr. Vale. Marcus's mother lifts her chin, something like pride cutting through fear. Vale, she says. That man used to come into my salon and put 20 on the counter like he was tipping the air. Women told him he looked like a banker. He liked that too much. He had a scar here. She touches the webbing between thumb and finger, faintly. Said he burned himself making his mama tea. He didn't seem like a man who ever boiled water for a woman. He always smelled like hand soap. Do you know his real name? Janelle asks. She thinks. He told me once his cousins called him Nate, she says. Might have been a lie. Might have been his middle. Men who do dirt wear names like jackets. But he flinched when the pastor called him Brother Nathaniel on a Sunday he was trying out being a public saint. Janelle writes Nathaniel and circles it. "Thank you," she says. "That's more than a clue." "You going to bring that child here?" his mother asks then, almost shy. "Yes," Janelle says, "when we can do it without heat." His mother nods and covers her mouth with her hand, the way you do when a thing is both holy and heavy. "Thank you for telling me," she says to Janelle, and the words are a blessing that is also a confession. "I have been kept out before by men who thought they were keeping me safe." On their way out, Janelle's phone buzzes again. It's a voicemail transcription from an unknown number. "This is a courtesy call from VR Ministries. We noticed your family is expanding in the eyes of the Lord. We'd love to offer resources, a fund for travel to reconcile estranged kin. Press 1 to learn more." She laughs, a bark. She forwards it to Alicia with "find out who owns this number and also fund." Alicia replies in under a minute. Already on it. The number routes through 3 shells. One traces back to a marketing firm that did an event at, wait for it, Lyle's church. Before bed, Janelle prints the ledger photos on their crappy home printer and tapes them above her desk. She copies the prayer card by hand because some words need to live in her own script to feel real. She writes a question at the bottom of the page where Go South sits like a drumbeat. Why? M. Hart. Who put that name into the book? She stares until her eyes blur, and then it clicks, small and mean. If a man wanted to mark a thing as his, so he could come back and claim it, if he wanted to reach for a necklace at a pawn shop and say, "That's mine," he might try a name that opened the drawer with a whisper. The name of a girl he meant to father, whether he did or not. The name of a family he believed he was building in secret. She writes control next to it, underlines it twice. The night is not kind. Somewhere after 1, the street goes quiet in a way that says the world is awake elsewhere. Janelle dreams she's at the river, that it has teeth and the water licks the bank like a tongue. She wakes and listens. There it is, the soft idle of a car down the block. She doesn't wake Marcus because rage needs sleep to go sharp. She lies there and decides what she'll do when morning comes. Morning comes. She texts Alicia, "Find Nathaniel Vale." Alicia sends back a dancing skeleton, and then, on it, "Also, my retired detective friend says check old inspection stations. Bite dent equals failed sticker equals someone who knows someone made it pass." Janelle sends Marcus to the DMV website like it's a treasure map. He returns with a list of stations from 97 and a grin that looks like homework done right. "Harold Lyle's cousin ran one," he says. "Right by the river." "Of course he did," Janelle says. They split their day into shifts work, safety, inquiry. Janelle teaches Shakespeare to 9th graders and watches their faces, learn how to forgive a flawed hero because the stage asked them to. At lunch, she sits with a law librarian who owes Alicia a favor and learns how to search deeds and liens like she was born to do it. After school, she and Marcus walk Zora home past Officer Lake's cruiser, and everyone pretends they can breathe. At 6, they meet Nia and Patrice at the library again. At 6:10, Alicia strides in with a man Janelle knows by face, if not by name, an attorney with a podcast voice and an office that smells like old wood. He shakes hands like a man who charges by the minute and smiles like a man who hates not to be paid for it. He sits down, opens a laptop, and says, "Let's ruin some days." By 7:30, they have a line. VR Ministries is registered to Vail Rutherford Consulting, which takes checks cut by Lyle Family Ventures, which paid for a youth mentorship gala in 2015 at a hotel where Mr. Vail shook hands with people who would pretend he was a philanthropist if it bought them cover. A photo from the event includes a banner. Janelle zooms in until the pixels cry. The logo is a stylized anchor that could, if you glanced quick, be a cross. Anchor, she says. Or a hook, Elisa says. Or a promise, Marcus says. And the word hurts. They print the photo, the business filings, the church ledger. They put them in a folder. They are making a case without a courtroom, and for once it feels like the right venue. On the way to the parking lot, wind smelling like rain in a dress makes Janelle shiver. Her phone buzzes in her pocket. Unknown number. Stop feeding the river, Mrs. Cooper. We can feed your child instead. College, a car, a real future. All you have to do is mind your own house. She hands the phone to Alicia, who doesn't flinch, just forwards it to 3 numbers, and then to herself with the subject line admissions against interest. Patrice looks up at the sky as if it might issue a statement. They always think we're for sale, she says. They never bring enough money to pay the bill. They part in a wash of hugs and grim humor. Nia leans into Janelle's shoulder for a second that says I know where I belong now, even if the map is messy. Marcus breathes something like relief and something like awe. Zora rolls her eyes when Auntie Patrice tells her to keep her keys between her fingers like claws when she walks to the car, but she tucks them in her fist anyway. In bed, in the dark, Janelle feels the story gather itself like a storm that has learned how to read. She knows the shape of the next thing. She knows it will require a public act and a private decision. She decides to make the public act first. She texts Alicia, "What's the best day to drop a package on a pastor? Sunday?" Alicia answers, "Sunday." Janelle replies, "Then we'll go to church." She adds, "Bring witnesses." And because the part of her that wants to be petty earns its keep, she types, "And a camera." The house slows, the heater hums. In the quiet between a mother and a father who have decided to raise something other than their own peace, the air develops an edge. They hold hands anyway, asleep, their fingers hooked like anchors that know the difference between sinking and holding fast. And somewhere across the river and up a cul-de-sac in Bowie, a man with a scar between his thumb and forefinger catches himself checking the locks twice, like a sinner who dimly recognizes the sound of judgment clearing its throat. The first thing I noticed when I stepped into Mr. Harris's hospital room was the way his eyes tracked me, not with surprise, but with the weariness of a man who'd been expecting me. Tubes ran from his arms to machines humming softly, and his once sturdy frame seemed to have collapsed in on itself. "I heard you've been busy," he said, voice rough, lips curling in something between a smile and a grimace. I didn't sit. "Why did you keep it? The gun, all these years?" He looked at me long enough that the beeping of the heart monitor became the only sound in the room. Because it was the only proof that I wasn't lying. I frowned. "Lying about what?" "That I didn't kill her," he said quietly. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. "You mean Shonda Davis?" He nodded, eyes glistening. "We were together that night. I was supposed to drive her to meet her cousin. We stopped at the liquor store for gum, and the guy in the ski mask came out of nowhere. Shot the clerk. Shonda, she ran. She saw him drop the gun in the alley. She picked it up. She thought, God help her, that if she hit it, she could protect whoever it was. I told her to get in the car, but she panicked. Took off running." His voice broke. "I never saw her alive again." My chest tightened. "So you took the gun?" "I found it the next morning. Wrapped it, kept it. I figured if the truth ever came out, I'd have something to show I didn't pull that trigger." "Why didn't you go to the police?" He chuckled bitterly. "In 1989? A black man with a murder weapon in Detroit? They would have buried me before the trial started." Before I could respond, the door opened and Detective Pruitt stepped in. His eyes swept from me to Harris. "Guess we're all here now." I stepped aside, but Harris held up a trembling hand. "She stays. She deserves to hear the rest." Pruitt leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "We found your fingerprints on the bag, Harris. And guess what else? We matched the bullet to a string of robberies tied to someone you know, Calvin Brooks. The name hung in the air like smoke. Calvin was my cousin, Harris said quietly. Shonda's cousin, too. It hit me like a punch. Shonda had been trying to protect him. Pruitt pulled a photo from his folder and tossed it on the bed. A mugshot, aged but recognizable. We picked him up in Gary, Indiana. He's ready to talk. Harris closed his eyes. It's over then. Not quite, Pruitt said. Brooks claims you knew the plan, that you were supposed to be the driver that night. That's a lie, Harris snapped, sudden fire in his voice. I didn't know anything. I thought I was picking Shonda up for dinner. I stepped forward. Detective, you've got enough to clear him of the murder, right? Pruitt's gaze softened slightly. Maybe, but accomplice to armed robbery? That's harder. Especially with no one to back his story except you. Harris looked at me, and I understood the question he wasn't asking. If I testified, I'd be staking my reputation, my badge, on a man whose truth had been buried under suspicion for 3 decades. Do you believe me? His eyes asked. I took a deep breath. I'll tell the truth. All of it. The trial was grueling. The prosecution painted Harris as a has-been criminal who'd hidden behind his teaching job for years. The defense leaned on the fact that Brooks had a record a mile long and every reason to shift blame. My testimony, recounting the discovery of the gun and Harris's account, was torn apart on cross-examination, but I didn't waver. In the end, the jury acquitted Harris of murder, convicting him only on a lesser charge tied to the robbery. With time served from an old, unrelated conviction, he walked out a free man. The first time I saw him after the verdict was back at the school. He was sitting in the empty classroom, sunlight falling across the desk where I once sat as a teenager. You didn't have to do that for me, he said. Yes, I did, I replied. You were the one who told me history isn't just facts. It's who gets to tell the story. He smiled faintly. Then you'd better keep telling it. A month later, I visited Shonda Davis's grave. I left a single lily, thinking about the chain of choices, fear, and silence that had led here. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it just makes the prison bigger, but with the door unlocked. For Harris, that would have to be enough. For me, it was the start of understanding just how much weight the past can carry and how heavy it feels in your hands. What you just heard wasn't the full story. It was the part someone tried to bury, the part that didn't fit the headline, the part where a person, not a suspect, was lost in the process. This case showed us what happens when the system moves too fast, or not at all, when suspicion weighs more than truth, when justice shows up late or never. But here's the thing. If these stories don't leave us asking questions, they'll keep repeating with different names. So if this one meant something to you, don't just move on. Talk about it. Question it. Pass it on. Because silence protects the wrong side of history. And sometimes, the only thing standing between truth and erasure is someone who chooses to care. Like, share, comment. Let the next chapter begin with awareness, not regret.